I'd like to go inward for myself. And I was like, after that experience, I was like, this should just be how consent is taught, just on a larger scale, just like being in a space where consent was the first thing that they did. Like you walk in and they give you the rules for ecstatic dance was
Hmm.
so eye-opening. And I was like,
Yeah.
this is incredible and so different from anything I've ever experienced. So it's definitely something you can do alone to start, but they do have group ecstatic dance experiences,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah,
really cool.
totally.
So we're in the middle of a pandemic right now. Where are you, like, mentally with all of the things that are going on in the world? But also, you are someone who can travel, like, you have the means to travel, you have the freedom to, work from wherever, and you recently had stepped down from the CEO responsibility, so it probably opened up more opportunities for you. And then we were hit with this pandemic. So, like, where are you with all of this? And, like, how has it opened you up, or how have you felt held back, if you have, in any way?
Well, it's personally, it's been a great time for me. I've had you know, I met and not met, but I, kind of advanced a relationship with an incredible woman, and
It's amazing.
yeah. So it's been a beautiful kind of
Beautiful.
romance where we're, kind of quarantined together, and that's been
Yes.
amazing. I'm also writing a book, so writing a book is like self-imposed quarantine, anyways. So that's priority. Um, and I've been able to get out to my ranch in Sedona, and so I haven't felt limited in any way. So personally, the time has been beautiful for me. I haven't had much disruption at all.
Mm,
Um, but I have incredible sympathy for what everybody's going through, whether they're impacted by the virus or from the economy or from the regulations or everything that's come up. So it's an interesting dichotomy of personally, I'm doing great, but I also have the utmost sympathy for what the world is going through at these different points. And so it's just kind of caught in between both of those thoughts that, I'm doing great, but this
yeah.
is a really tough time for everybody.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I definitely could understand how someone like you who has their own healing practices, like you have your own world and bubble that you can create that safe space, but on a global scale, there's still that anxiety and uncertainty for everyone. So you probably feel it too.
Yeah,
Um, that
yeah,
bubble
exactly.
doesn't protect outside that
Right.
global.
Especially if you're, if you're compassionate and you really care about other people, and there's lots of people with different opinions. I think the invitation and the challenge for us is, can we love everybody? Can we love everybody that's there? Can we love the people who are talking shit right now on this
Right,
live? Like, can we
right.
love them? Can we love them too? Like, that's the invitation, and that's the opportunity that everybody provides us. Like, instead of resisting and kind of cast out and making people our enemy or our opposition, like, can we embrace them at least energetically and be like, all right, like, all good, like, you're free to believe and feel what you think. We're all people at the end of the day, and that's I think the place where we're all kind of, the opportunity that this thing is really giving us is, and unfortunately we're seeing a lot of people get divided by this.
Yeah.
But my hope is that through this resistance we'll start to come together even more. But that's the beautiful part. Like, resistance creates adaptation, and
Hmm.
I'm hopeful that this will create really positive adaptations.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I'm really hopeful to see what the outcome will be months when this is in the past. I want to be able to think back to the COVID days, and just
Yeah.
see where it took us. You talked a little bit about writing your book right now, which congratulations, that's amazing. Um,
Hmm.
and writing a book takes incredible focus. I cannot even imagine where to begin with something like that. How do you get yourself to sit down with a task that large and have it not feel so overwhelming, large, and hard to accomplish?
You don't. You freak out all the time.
Okay.
Like, it
Uh-huh.
feels overwhelming, too large, and too much to accomplish, and then you just keep working and you just keep chipping away. It's like, you know, you
Right.
have to just take it. What's the next best step? What can I write right now? What can I do right now? Because if you try to look at the vastness of something like that and
Yeah.
how much is involved, it's overwhelming. And then you'll try to rush. And if you try to rush, you're going to be slow. You're going to be sloppy. So you
Right.
just have to focus on being as methodical as possible,
Mhm.
and just take that next best step. Take that next thing that you need to do, and really just myopically focus on that, rather than you know, being overwhelmed by the scope of things.
Do you set up like a schedule for yourself, or do you write when you feel inspired, kind of thing?
Both,
Both.
both. I mean, it's I kind of write whenever I can, and certainly when I'm inspired, certainly when I'm not inspired. You don't really have the luxury of waiting. If you're a poet, you have the luxury of waiting till you're inspired to write your poetry. If you're writing a book, you don't have that luxury,
Right.
and I certainly don't have that luxury. And as my, deadline looms, the luxury is getting less and less, and more things need to be folded, and more things need to be sacrificed, so I can make sure that I'm dedicating myself to the book in the proper balance.
Yeah. What did you learn from your last book experience that you're implementing into writing this one?
Just that kind of relentlessness and that kind of acceptance for, I think when you first write it, you'll write something and then you realize that it doesn't fit, and it's really painful to go back and just delete 1,000 words, like, damn it,
Right.
but that's just part of the process, and you just gotta know that you're gonna change and delete and modify tons of
Right.
different things,
Right.
so
Absolutely. Just being flexible with that.
yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to do one last question, and then I want to see if anyone in the community has any questions for you, if that's okay.
Of course. Yeah, I only
Okay.
have a couple minutes. I got a 3:30, so we'll have to do like lightning round.
Perfect. Perfect. So I'll do maybe one last question.
Sure, let's go.
So the question is, next month is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. Could you talk a little bit about like some of your mental health struggles, or if like what the shadow parts of your mind, like what they have been, and how it's been affected for you by being a man, if there is any correlation there?
It's hard to generalize male, female. I mean, I think we all experience the same thing. We're all human, and I think I've experienced to some degree most of the mental health challenges that exist. Periods of addiction, periods of depression, periods of anxiety, periods of all of these different things that are there, apathy and anger and self-destruction, and all of these, I think we're all familiar with to some degree. Some may be stronger in us than others. I think if you were going to generalize, which again I think is dangerous to do just because
Right.
it doesn't fit everybody, but I think most men that I work with, and looking in myself, we're very attached to validation through our success, through our business, through our physical prowess, through these different attributes.
Yeah.
And that's how we've learned to love ourselves. Like
Mm.
our coaches and our teammates and our fans and our families might give us more love if we play a great basketball game and we get a great report card. So we learn to love ourselves based on those things that we do rather than who we are. And I think that's something that is important to be mindful of, that, if we subscribe to that story, we're going to be in trouble, because then we're
Yeah.
always going to be reaching for that next thing to be valid and worthy of our own love. And that's a dangerous place to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. Constantly seeking external validation is definitely common for men and women, and individuals who don't identify with either of those, but just a human thing. We'll do one question from the audience. One lucky individual will get to ask Aubrey a question. Let's see if we already had questions. Does anyone have a question they would like to ask? Sometimes there's a delay. Not saying anything just yet. Someone says, be known and forgotten when you're dead, or be unknown and remember when you're dead. Sure, if let's see. All right. I don't know if I'm seeing any questions. Best podcast. Could you give us the best podcast recommendation?
I really listened to different podcasts episode by episode. Of course, Joe Rogan does an incredible job. Duncan Trussell does an incredible job. I've enjoyed a lot of the episodes from Paul Chek. Tony Robbins had an amazing episode out recently called Facts Over Fear. I really appreciated that, with a bunch of doctors and epidemiologists on there. So there's really just so much available out in the podcast space that, I think it's just find what you're into.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's just so many. And for anyone who doesn't know, Aubrey has his own podcast that's incredible. So if you're in need of a podcast, you should check out the Aubrey Marcus podcast.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, yes,
Well, it's good to
absolutely.
talk to you.
It was so good to have you here. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoy the rest of your Friday and enjoy the weekend. And to anyone who tuned in, thank you, thank you, thank you. All
Indeed.
right.
Take care, everybody.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.